Yeah, I think from an institutional perspective, if you look at your asset allocation, how you want to invest your capital, I think impact investing adds to your portfolio diversification and in terms mitigates your risk, right? And that's the end goal of every portfolio manager, is to mitigate risk. I think that in terms of asset allocation, impact investing will always have a small portion of that because bond shares, these are instruments that have existed for so many years. They've proven there's history, there are trends. Impact investing is still new. However, it does unlock various other things in your organization, like builds your brand, like has a feel-good factor, like it's becoming more of a recruitment brand and a staff engagement brand. And so if you look at all the other softer things that that capital allocation unlocks, I think it needs to have a space within your corporate portfolio in terms of asset allocation. What it is doing is it's bringing a voice that capital can do good for society. I think that it is also highlighted that there are areas that we need to focus in. Who would have thought that childhood early development is such an important thing for the future sustainability of our country, and yet our big focus is on large education budgets for primary school and tertiary education. But so the voice that impact investors has brought just in the education space is in the early childhood development really sets the trend for the future. And that has been what impact investors has said, listen, our capital is as good, but our focus is even better. And so you will find that in all sectors. In the infrastructure space, the participation of women in infrastructure as investors is pervasive. 4% of all engineers in this country are women. There's a lack of women making decisions as the equity owner and as participants in boards, and yet infrastructure is built for men in this country. The way transport is laid out, the way that we build corporate offices are built for men, and yet we know that as soon as we build infrastructure for women, it's not only for women, it's designed for children, for the elderly, and for the broader context of society. So impact investors bring that conversation to the table, and they also bring capital to support their conversation. So although it is niche, I think what they've done good is they've brought very unique considerations and different ways of looking at solutions that we've looked at in all industries. If you talk about agriculture, the largest number of female primary farmers on this continent in Africa are female. So why are we not supporting female agricultural businesses, female primary farmers? And so impact investors bring in that different angle that traditional businesses have not focused on. Social entrepreneurship is still quite a new sector, and so we don't actually know what it will look like in 20, 30 years' time yet. And so the uncertainty about how does this evolve is challenging for traditional investors. Remember, we are talking about an asset allocation of about 1% when you're sitting in front of a big fund manager. They will buy 50% of stocks, bonds, and 1% wrapped into this sort of thing that they don't really understand. For social entrepreneurs, it is important to make your business sustainable from an operational perspective. When investors come do a due diligence in your business, you have to ensure that you have the right processes, the right governance structures, and the right management team in place to ensure that investors have a level of comfort. Now that is challenging because social entrepreneurs have they want to do good, and so that's not really their main focus. Having an audit and remuneration committee is not the biggest focus, but paying the community trust might be. And so there's this disconnect between operationalizing your business versus wanting to talk to the heart is why you actually started this business. I think from an industry perspective, what we can do is put the structures in place to make social entrepreneurs better. So standardization of reporting mechanisms, for example, standardization, sharing due diligence practices, for example, and as an industry body, put those frameworks in place that social entrepreneurs can just tap into. I don't see why there couldn't just be one social entrepreneur audit firm or a network of accountants that audits and accounts for the practices of social entrepreneur. Finally, I think that we need to look at how do social entrepreneurs exit the business. So the exit mechanisms are important. My ultimate goal that I want to see in 20 years' time is to have a social stock exchange where the public, and this might talk to the retail part to it, where the public can buy shares in social enterprises. But from a sustainability perspective, it also allows social entrepreneurs to know that I can grow my business, I can have a merger, I can have a collaboration, I can partner for a bigger social good, and ultimately I can then list my business and return money back to shareholders and money back to beneficiaries on a much larger scale and have a broader capital base too. And ultimately, that's the purpose of business, right? But so we need to increase the base of how social enterprises can exit. For me, the two things need to happen. We need more specific information to come out of the industry. I think that there are very good organizations, the Bertha, leading the development of information, but we need detailed information. We need to work with the universities to write the reports. We need to encourage students to do their master's thesis on the industry. We need data to be consolidated among social entrepreneurs, to be consolidated amongst investors in the social, so that we can then do a thesis around it, we can analyze it, we can understand trends. So information asymmetry is critical for the future development of this impact investment industry. And information also gives us bargaining power to sit in front of other capital investors. Without the lack of information is a barrier because we don't actually know the true value of the size of the industry. We don't know what social enterprises exist in the townships. And we do know that most of small businesses exist in the townships. And we know that the impact that those township business probably impacts up to 10 people with one person running a business, if not more. But what is the value? What is the economic and intrinsic value of that? And so information becomes important. The second point I would want to see that the industry develop in the next few decades is to come together as a body, to have a consolidated voice that we can unlock capital. Because it's very difficult for a social entrepreneur or for an investor to unlock capital when you currently still have to explain what impact investing is. But as a body, we can go to the PIC, to the NEC, to the IDC, and unlock large-scale capital, which is available for this sector. And it also allows the institutional investors confidence to increase their asset allocation portion for the industry.